It's the Draft Rankings podcast, and I'm Cody Carpentier, joined by Matty Kiwoom. We're back again with another week of college football in the bag. The first week of the NFL is in still. We just watched a classic back-to-back nights, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Caleb Williams and J.J. McCarthy. But tonight we're going to be talking about the quarterbacks of the future and who's going to be coming down the pipeline, who could be a riser through this pre-draft process leading up until April. Some names that when we look at it right now, they're getting mocked in the second and third round, maybe later, and could potentially be, Matty, in the top 10?
We've seen it before, man. We've seen it now over the last few years that these guys, these seniors, these more developed, whether it be their maturity, whether it be their polish, their poise, whatever it is, we've seen these seniors in college go from relative obscurity in terms of like the betting odds to be in the first round to be in hell. I mean, last year we saw a guy go from plus 3,200 to becoming the first overall pick. So it's happened now over these last couple of years, it's becoming more and more common.
So just to lay the land here, since COVID, I'll name off some of these quarterbacks and where they were around September 9th of their drafted season. So going back to Joe Burrow in 2019, he was projected and mocked in the late 20s. There's a couple of boards that had him in the 80s, the 90s, and the 50s. Zach Wilson as well was kind of in the similar conversation. He was around the start of round 3. You have Bo Nix. When you look back to that fall, it was all round 3, a little bit of round 2, a little bit, mostly round 3 conversations with Bo Nix. You have Michael Penix. When you look back to fall, going into the Washington season, that was pretty prolific. It takes the team to the national championship against Michigan. Mock drafts that had him literally anywhere from 18th overall to 106th overall. It was a broad range. So shout out to Chris McGlynn for having the mock draft in September of that year that had him going top 20, the first one to have him in that conversation. Actually, Joe Klatt had him in May the year before as a top 20 pick. That's interesting. Shout out to Joe Klatt.
Joe Klatt's a legend, dude.
He might have played quarterback at the college level. Jaden Daniels just a couple of years ago. When you're talking about September and October, his mock draft area, 86, 36, 46, 91, 76, all over the board in the second, the third round mostly for Jaden Daniels. Look at Cam Ward from about a year and a half ago. We're talking about 50, 43, 65, 34, 112. Again, second and third round. Matty, when we look at this 2026 draft class, we discussed the last 48 hours how we were going to attack this show because there's a lot of problems, in my opinion, at the quarterback position. And that is not everybody has been the most impressive. They've each had like their way of a good game, a bad game, 2 bad games, 2 good games. Nussmeier starts out the season great. He comes a little bit back down to earth this week. Klubnik struggled in both games he's played so far. Lenore Sellers had a good game against Virginia Tech at the beginning, and everything since then has kind of regressed a little bit. Drew Aller has been very middling. John Mateer has put himself in the forefront of the Heisman conversation from Oklahoma. Carson Beck has bounced back. Sam Levitt's been fine. They just got beat by Mississippi State. There's been a lot of juice about Fernando Mendoza at Indiana. Dante Moore at Oregon. We need to talk about little Dante Moore. Those are all guys, though, Matty, that are into the top 50. Carson Beck's at 63. Is there anybody in the? I guess you could put Mateer and Beck into that conversation, but the Mateer, Beck, I mean, Darian Mensah is in the top 100. Nico Iamaleava is in the top 100. Sawyer Robertson, Aiden Childs are outside of the top 100 by a little bit. I mean, these are quarterbacks that have won their first couple of football games. Sawyer Robertson struggled with Auburn. Childs looks solid at Michigan State. Nico, you give me the thumbs down on the video cast for people that are watching. Darian Mensah gets his former team in Tulane this next week. Is it just, do we kind of draw a line after Carson Beck, or do you think a guy like a Sawyer Robertson or Aiden Childs can jump into it?
I think that they can jump into it because you just talked about at the top of the show. We've now seen it. There's precedent set since COVID that, development, that maturity, that those starts, those career starts in college matter. And I think that we could see that. And it all starts with the quote unquote, again, if you're listening to this, I'm using the bunny ears, I'm using the quotes, the consensus first round guys. Nussmeier, Klubnik, Sellers, Aller, Levitt. They're not taking the world by fire. They're not, necessarily taking the bull by the horns. They're not necessarily showing off that they're going to be the 101. And not saying that they won't right the ship and get there, but we have to start taking these Sawyer Robertsons, these John Mateers, Carson Becks. We have to start taking these guys seriously. And on top of the guys we've mentioned, you can't completely count out guys even further down the list. I mean, Jalen Daniels has been good. Jalen Daniels has been, a hype prospect in the past. He's getting a ton of starts. He started the year off pretty sweet. And I want to bring up one extra name that was not on my radar at all, but what about Joey Aguilar? Joey Aguilar, started at Appalachian State, was productive there, 3,700 yards in 2023. Then he was going to go to UCLA. He ends up not going. They end up basically pulling off a trade where Nico goes out west and Aguilar goes to Tennessee. And now back-to-back games over 250 yards, 5 touchdown, no picks. He's grading in, amongst the top 8 in terms of the PFF passing grade. He's, top 10 with an 88.7 passing grade. And now this weekend, we look at the calendar, he's hosting Georgia, battle of top 10 teams. If he produces, if he is the reason that Tennessee wins that game, you bet your ass that he's got to be in the conversation. The NFL will take notice. Now, I haven't really dug deep into the film over the course of his career, but I like what I've seen this year. But you look at the intangibles, 6'3", 225, that's an NFL quarterback. That's the size of an NFL quarterback. And so far, he's been making the throws. I know it's Syracuse and East Tennessee State. Again, I'm not anointing Joey Aguilar, the first overall pick in the 2026 draft. But what I am saying is that with a good performance this weekend, he is now on the radar. And you talked about Mateer. Mateer, right now, if the draft was tomorrow, who gets drafted first, Cade Klubnik or John Mateer?
I think it's still Cade Klubnik. That's close.
And you know what? You might not be wrong in that because, scouting is not a one-year process. That's something that you and I talk about all the time, that you have to factor in the rolling 6 months, the rolling 18 months. You have to factor all that in. So maybe a scout doesn't take these couple of games for Mateer and that's enough. But you talk about a toolsy guy who hosted Michigan last week and was the reason why they won. 19 carries. This kid's a gamer, and now all of a sudden, the door's wide open for this quarterback class. And I think this is the most important thing going in college football in terms of NFL draft coverage, the correlation between the college game and the NFL draft that we like to cover, that we like to talk about. All of a sudden, if these quarterbacks aren't going to, seize their opportunity and make sure that they are the 101 from beginning to end, they leave the door open. I mean, just look at 2 years ago. Caleb was the locked-in 101. Drake was the locked-in 102. Who went to? Jane Daniels. Who was a rookie of the year, MVP candidate in his rookie year? Jane Daniels. Bo Nix, Michael Penix. Michael Penix, as you said, took Washington all the way to the national championship game. And, you know who else we haven't brought up in that class? J.J. McCarthy. Now, J.J. McCarthy, I would say, is kind of a tweener. He was an underclassman, a highly regarded quarterback prospect, super winner, national champion. There's a little bit difference there. I think he's kind of in between the overhyped prospect and the out-of-nowhere guy. He's kind of in that middle ground. But, I mean, that could be a Mateer. I mocked Mateer in the first round in my mock 2.0 over player profile. I mean, there is some hype behind Mateer. There is some hype around a guy like a Mendoza. And there was hype around a guy like Beck. I just think that the conversation needs to start happening, that we need to be on top of this. We need to be ahead of this and not be reactionary when all of a sudden we're looking where we find ourselves down in Mobile in February, and we're not talking about Klubnik and Nussmeier being the number 1 quarterback. We're talking about Sawyer Robertson. We're talking about John Mateer. We're talking about other players. I think now is the time to start talking about it and start bringing it to our viewers so that they can get ahead of it and just start understanding that the quarterback landscape changes so much so quickly.
I think the Aguilar angle is very interesting for you to bring up because he isn't even in, like, he's not even discussed. Like, he's not even in the consensus big board database right now.
Right. And it's not without reason. He is
He's
coming from nowhere.
well, he's a JUCO guy that went to App State, and now he's at
Mhm.
then that whole situation happened, but now he's at Tennessee, and it's like he's 6'3", 225. He's a good quarterback. He's in. I tweeted this out last week after that game against Syracuse, but he did something in his first game at Tennessee that Nico had never done, which was throw for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns with no interceptions against a Power 5 opponent, Power 4 opponent in Syracuse. He had never done that. And he'd only done it 3 times in total. And it was against Chattanooga. It was against UTEP. Sorry, it was only twice ever, Chattanooga and UTEP. He threw for 2 touchdowns, no picks, but not 200 yards against Mississippi State. And now
Which that's a
huh?
Mississippi State is not necessarily. We're not talking about pounding the door down on Mississippi
Hey,
State. They're looking better this year,
State
though.
got that action this weekend.
Yeah, they beat Sam Levitt and Arizona State. So I mean,
So
again,
I do think Aguilar's got some legs. I do think that this would be the game of all games this week against Georgia that would put him on the map. And people aren't going to respect the Syracuse thing because it's Syracuse. And people definitely aren't going to respect this last week when you handle a team like East Tennessee and you score 72. It's like it is what it is. But Georgia on an 8-game losing streak against Georgia, as Tennessee is, and you walk in here and this is a good defense. It's a big time defense, right? But it's a different situation, and he's a little better, I think, up top than Nico is. I think Aguilar is very interesting. I think one name, and I kind of hinted at it as I was going through here, and it's not a guy outside the top 100. I don't really like many of the guys outside the top 100. I think Robertson's interesting. I kind of like Childs, but I think he needs another year.
yeah, I agree.
But Dante Moore is a guy that for his entire life has been kind of, I guess you could say, kind of in the Nico Iamaleava type of thing. Like he's kind of been that. He's been the top dog.
Yeah.
He was the number 2 quarterback in the 2023 class behind Arch, side by side with Arch, depending on the platform you looked at. But he went to UCLA, transferred to Oregon, and now, he had a redshirt year. He's a redshirt sophomore right now. He could technically go back. But dude, when you watch this kid, so I got this, I clipped this play and I'm going to show it. And again, he's throwing to a superstar. He's throwing to a DeCorian Moore, who I got a take on because I've been watching DeCorian Moore for the last 2 years because he was a big time Texas target from Duncanville. You're probably going to know the player comp when you watch this play, or if you've watched DeCorian before. But watch the quarterback here. The receiver makes a great play, yes, but watch the quarterback just at the jump. The running back has a great blitz pickup, and the quarterback just makes a just the flick of the arm talent, just the pure rollout and arm talent. And I don't know why when I click on this thing, it only shows up as it mutes my mic, but I want to show it to you one more time and just watch the quarterback off the rip. Again, for the podcast audience, you have to go to YouTube to watch this. It's a play of Dante Moore on a rollout with a running back picking up a massive blitz and then him hitting DeCorian Moore about 45 yards down the sideline. It's an incredibly impressive layering of the football, arm strength, and location. And just it's like things that you don't see from very many quarterbacks. I don't know. I love the kid. And there's been obviously his whole career a lot of hype around him. But it's almost like, Maddie, for some reason, and this is my kind of purview of this as someone who follows the damn sport, they just put 69 on Oklahoma State this last week. It feels like he doesn't carry as much hype or as much notability or view or viewership or any word you want to use
Mm-hmm.
as Arch, as Mateer, as Klubnik, as Nussmeier. He kind of just feels like he's the guy sitting in the back of the room just hanging out. And you got to remember, he played 9 games as a true freshman at UCLA. He's got some skins, right? He played a little, he had a couple snaps last year under Gabriel, but he sat with Gabriel in that room. And then this year it's his job. So he, like Arch, actually better than Arch, like had a rollout as a true freshman where he got to just get battered at UCLA with bad talent. Then he got to learn from a quarterback that had, second most passing yards all time in the sport, played 60 games, knew the process, learned the Dan Lanning, got the offensive lineman at Oregon, got the number 1 wide receiver in the country. Like everything kind of has come together for him. And maybe it's because he's playing on the West Coast. Maybe it's the Pac-12 after dark, factor here. But it feels like
Big
Dante
Ten
Moore
now.
talked about at all.
You know why they're not talking about Dante Moore? And again, we haven't been able to talk to these kids. We will when the combine rolls around and when we go down to Mobile, we'll get a chance to maybe get to know these kids a little bit. But just from the surface, just reading between the tea leaves, the reason why he's not talked about is because he did something that kids don't do in today's football. He took a back seat and he decided to make a good decision, a humble decision. Because initially going to UCLA, he went to Chip Kelly was the head coach at the time, if I'm not mistaken, and he went there, got a bag, and did the whole superstar thing. Didn't work. And rarely in today's world do you see these kids decide that superstardom can wait a year. And he did. And it worked. Because you got to learn behind Dan Lanning and learn from Dylan Gabriel, who was a 3rd-round pick, an NFL player. And getting the chance to learn the offense and not rush the process, unfortunately, in terms of the hype train, gets you left behind. But as we're seeing now, these kids need to get this type of advice. The put your chips in, the win now, the get the money now, all that stuff is great. And I understand being looked when you're offered $2 million, probably tough. It's probably tough to say, you know what, I'm going to take $750,000 to go be a backup, and I'll get my $2 million a year from now. Tough, I get it. I get it. But for the fact that he was able to take a step back, be, quote unquote, hidden behind Dylan Gabriel, not part of that team at Oregon, we're seeing it come out in spades. And in that clip alone, that is not just a good athlete, because a lot of players, there are guys with the arm talent that can make that throw. But when you see him roll out, set his feet, drop a dime, throw with anticipation, because that's what gets lost when you talk about translating the college game to the NFL, in my opinion, is you can make the howitzer throw 70 yards. But if your receiver has to put his back to the end zone, catch it like a punt, you didn't throw with anticipation. He threw that ball with anticipation. He let his guy make a move to get a touchdown. There's a lot good in that play. But to your point, the reason why he's not getting the hype is because he did the humble thing. He did the smart thing. He took a back seat.
I think that's probably fair. But here's the thing, and people will tell me, like, there might be some Oregon fans out there. There might be some people out there that tell me, well, he's not going to come out. He's only 20. If he was in the draft this year, he wouldn't turn 21 until after he got onto a roster, which is kind of bizarre. I think he turns 21 next May. So here's my thought process here and why I'm even bringing up him into the conversation. I think that's a little bit also why he's not brought up, is because he's 20 years old and he's a redshirt sophomore, and you're like, he's definitely going to be back at Oregon next year.
Look at that about J.J. McCarthy too, right? He was 20 years old. He was a young prospect. He went on to win the national championship. He said, I'm done here. Why couldn't that happen for him?
Exactly where I'm going here is they have Austin Novosad in the quarterback room, who's a redshirt sophomore, 6'3", 200 pounds, that they like. Achilles Smith Jr., I watched at the Rivals 5-star camp last year, Achilles Smith's son, Jr. He's a redshirt freshman, or not a redshirt, a true freshman right now. So you think him in a year, he'll be a redshirt freshman. Novosad starts next year. Achilles Smith comes in his redshirt sophomore year. That's 3 straight years of turnover right there. And you get each. I think they like all of those quarterbacks, maybe not equally, but at a certain point and a certain level. Right. Novosad will have been in the program for 3 years at that point. Achilles Smith, by the time he plays, will have been in for 2. And the way you get there is if Dante Moore and this Oregon football team, which if through the first couple of weeks of ball in college, LSU's nice. right?
Obviously. Yep.
Georgia's defense looks good. Their offense looks very meh. Ohio State's defense looks very good. Their offense, if they can get Jeremiah,
They think it'll be all right.
they didn't play that well against Texas. They won, but they didn't play that great. They had 2 nice drives. What I'm saying is, like, when you get to these big dog games like that game, right? We know Ohio State's going to be there at the end. They're going to be competitive. LSU is going to be competitive. We think Texas is probably going to be competitive. We think Georgia's probably going to be competitive at the end. Oregon, though, feels like they're a notch higher than the Georgias and the Texases of the world right now. And when you look at that Oregon schedule, Maddie, they're 2-0, and so far through 2 games, they've scored 128 points. Maddie, 128 points. And I know they're playing Montana and Oklahoma State. I get it. This week,
but Oklahoma State is that's a real program. Mike Gundy is that's not. I understand they're in shambles. I understand it's not good. This is not Austin P. They're not playing UMass Lowell here. This was a real program that they dog walked on Saturday.
They scored more against Oklahoma State than I think Penn State won by, LSU won by, and Georgia won by in week 2 combined. They scored more against a Power 4 team than those 3 teams did defeating FCS level opponents. So Oregon, this is their run out though. Listen to this. This is they're going to, I mean, at Northwestern this week, 60. Oregon State next week, 40. They'll win. At Penn State, this is the big one, right? This is going to be a top 4 matchup. At Penn State on the 27th of September, it's going to be a whiteout, 7:30 p.m. That's your big game. And guess what? Right now, if I had to look at it in a flat circle, Oregon beats them by 2 touchdowns. Drew Aller, the way he's playing right now, the run game's nice, but this Oregon defense is good as well. And this Oregon offense, the speed and the size in that offensive line with Isaiah World and Emmanuel Pregnant are playing with on the left side right now. I don't care who you are. Oregon's I think they're going to beat Penn State by 2 touchdowns today. This is 3 weeks out from the game. Then you got Indiana at home. Good luck to Indiana. Fernando Mendoza, I know you're playing well, but good luck. I don't think the talent is going to quite line up there. Rutgers, Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, USC should be ranked at that point. Washington. Yeah. It's a pretty good run out for Oregon if they get through Penn State. They're probably undefeated going to the Big Ten championship. And if you get to that point, it's probably against Ohio State. Ohio State, Oregon, and the Big Ten championships kind of nicey. You send them to the playoff, and then once you get to the playoff, like all things are wide open. And I truthfully think if Dante Moore and this Oregon football team get to the semifinals of the national championship, the kid will go to the draft, because at that point, if he plays to that level, he's going to probably be fringe New York City for Heisman, and or in the top 10 conversation for the NFL draft, top 5 at the quarterback position, top 4 at the quarterback position.
I agree. I don't think it's outrageous to even say at this moment in time. I understand Julian Sayin has all the talent, all the potential. Bryce Underwood has more than all the talent and all the potential. But I don't think it's that crazy to say that Dante Moore is the best quarterback in the Big Ten right now. I mean, Fernando Mendoza is more polished. He's probably a little bit more reps. But that's what I'm saying. At this point in time, Dante Moore, and then what I think a lot of people are going to start connecting the dots, and it's not that they don't realize it. It's just sometimes, there's a lot of information. Things get forgotten. They're going to go, this Dante Moore kid, this guy was a bona fide 5-star, no doubt, one of the best quarterback prospects to come out of the last 5. Oh, this guy was able to sit behind and learn something that a lot of these kids just don't get to do in this age of get me the bag and get me the playing time. There's a lot of things working for him, and I completely agree with you. They could go to Penn State, and I mean, Drew Aller is what he is at this point. I don't think a zebra can't change his stripes. This is a guy I think that severely lacks what it takes from above the shoulders to be that guy, to be a franchise quarterback. I don't think Drew Aller has it. And he's going to welcome in a team that's coached by one of the best coaches in college football right now, one of the best well-run programs on the planet right now in college football. And if they're not ready, Oregon is going to go there and beat the dog shit out of Penn State. I agree with you. I don't if Penn State doesn't get their act together in these next 2 weeks, and I mean just have a little bit more. I don't know what the word is. It's they're winning handily, so it's not like they're not playing well, but they need to step it up a notch over these next 2 weeks for me to not take whatever the spread is for Oregon, take whatever the money line is, and take Oregon on the road. I don't care if it's white out or not. And then after that, you're completely on to you. I think you're onto something here when you talk about Dante Moore. You can see the path to him being a New York finalist.
I think so. I think Dante Moore is probably my favorite. I think you brought up a great comp in the JJ McCarthy conversation. Just being the guy that, it didn't really seem like it came to fruition until the end when it was in the national championship. It was, okay, well, this defense is what got Michigan here. And this is why this team got here. And you look at the running game. We had an offensive line at Michigan that had 5-6 deep. I think this Oregon offensive line's got 2, 3, 4 guys that should be, 2 guys for sure that are going to be in the top 60, top 80 conversation this upcoming 2026 NFL draft. But man, Dante Moore might be my favorite right now amongst that whole group that's not being discussed past Garrett Nussmeier, Lenora Sellers, Arch Manning, Cade Klubnik, Drew Aller. I know Mendoza's there, but Dante Moore at the right now to me is a top 15 pick, top 20 pick. That's kind of where I'm sitting.
I agree. I think that's fair. I think that makes sense. That's kind of where we're at right now in the college football game.
A couple other names I want to talk about. Carson Beck. I think we're going to see a little bit more this week. They get South Florida. We just saw South Florida get after a Florida team. I was sitting in a blind in Central Texas watching this game on my cell phone, and South Florida was, it's crazy. I was actually thinking before this game happened, man, it's crazy. Florida's top 12, top 15 in America right now. It's crazy. 365 days ago, they were calling for Billy Napier's head. And it wasn't more than, 300 minutes later than that they're calling for his head again because of a loss to South Florida. And I think that they're still in growing pains in Florida. So I don't want to jump too much into Florida, but more so I'm thinking more towards Carson Beck. And with that game this week, South Florida and Miami, have you watched a little Byram Brown, Maddie, at all so far this year?
I haven't. Florida? No, I haven't done much of a deep dive other than just the highlights of this past South Florida game.
That's what I was angling more towards. Was like, have you at least seen him play, some Boise State? You've seen him run the football. This guy is a house, a brute.
Yeah, well, that's an understatement.
A tank. Like, I don't know what the best way to explain. He's 6'3", 231 pounds, I think is what he's listed at right now on the USF homepage. 6'3", 232 from Raleigh, North Carolina, Byron Brown. If this kid can stay healthy, this South Florida team, they also got one of the most bizarre schedules, like, to start the season. Boise State, Florida, Miami. And it's low key like a good warm up. Heads like, it wasn't Miami, then Florida, then Boise. It was Boise, who is sort of at your level from a talent perspective, at home. Then you get to go to Gainesville, which is just up the street. And now you get to go to Miami, which is just down the street. And it's a warm-up from a talent perspective of, like, Florida's super talented, but they're super young. And now you get to go to a Miami team who's got a more advanced quarterback and has got better older talent on the trenches. I'll be really interested to see this game because obviously that USF Florida game went back and forth, but I want to watch the quarterback play in this one with Byron Brown against this Miami defensive line. I want to know how this offensive line at USF can hold up against them. But really, I kind of want to see just how this unfolds for both quarterbacks, because like you look at that game last week, Legway was 23 for 33, 222. He had a pick and a touchdown, and they were able to run the ball. He was able to throw it a little bit. some things were, I mean, very much play calling and very much DJ Legway's young. And I'm not sure if Carson Beck struggles with that stuff this week.
I think it's a big game for Carson Beck also. This is a game that like didn't have the hype 2 weeks ago, but now it's got a little bit of hype, and it's a little bit of a battle for Florida. And if he doesn't come correct, they could find their way losing another game because UCF, like you said, they are continuously building on their momentum. They are kind of doing the talent buildup. But the truth is, if they're at this point in time where they're kind of firing at all cylinders, Byron Brown's not going to go down easy. He's shown the fight. We saw it last week, and like I said, I watched that game last week. I think this is a big game for Becca. So, we're talking about the QB landscape. We're talking about guys coming on the scene and becoming conversations for round 1 picks in the NFL draft. Carson Beck, Joey Aguilar, both, really kind of on the line here. A lot of their draft stock, a lot of their season, a lot of their hype really kind of depends on them playing well this Saturday. Are you on mute?
Is there any other quarterbacks you want to hit on today?
No, we kind of talked about everyone, at least in part, or we don't really need to talk Mateer. We've talked Mateer before. The national media now is talking Mateer. Just know that Cody and I have both been Mateer guys from jump. We knew how fun he was, so we don't need to talk about that. But I do want to get your opinion on Sawyer Robertson because he's second in all of college football in passing yards. He's really kind of turned it up. I don't know if the team is going to be good enough for him to get that hype, but is he good enough to get that hype? Senior, he's got the size, he's got the arm. By most accounts, was pretty impressive at the Manning Passing Academy. What are your thoughts on the Baylor quarterback?
I mean, that's a McShay special right there, right? Like McShay seems to. I mean, I'm sort of waiting for Todd McShay to pull the Sawyer Robertson's going to be like my QB2 or QB3 type of thing. Like that's what it feels like we're on the fringe of talking about right now. I think he's a good quarterback. Do I think he's to that level yet? I don't. No, he's excelling with mild talent at Baylor. I'll be honest. I'm maybe it's the projection in me, but I'm a little more. It's going to sound bad because people still have this in the back of their mind, but I'm a little more interested in the Jackson Arnold side of the conversation at the quarterback position than I am of the Sawyer Robertson stuff. I think Robertson's a good quarterback, right? I think he's more prototypical than not. But I think Dart's, God, wow, that's going to be tough. Calling him Dart. Arnold at Auburn, Jackson Arnold, not spelt the same on Jackson's side of things. I think Jackson Arnold at Auburn is, it's interesting. He's jumped up into the Heisman top 12. I think he's 12 or plus 2,000 right now. The same odds to win the Heisman right now as Jeremiah Smith and Drew Aller.
Interesting.
Jackson Arnold. So I like Sawyer Robertson. I think more so what it is, Maddie, is like just my play style of preference. Like I don't have a problem with Robertson. I get it. I've watched him. I think he's a good quarterback. I think he processes well. I don't love his delivery. I think it's fine, but I don't like all the mechanics behind it. I'd also like to see him win a few more games. Then, I would have liked to have seen him win that Auburn game. But I kind of just prefer, I guess, in that tier of conversation, I would say for me it's Arnold, then Robertson, then Mendoza as far as a preference.
I'm not too far off from you here. The NFL might like him, so that might make him, I might have to put him more on my radar. But when I see kind of the profile, when I look at the talent, kind of how it is, it's not an apples comparison, but I kind of think of him more like the Tyler Shuck, someone who's been around. He's been playing college football since 2022. Obviously, the story is not as extensive as Shuck's was, but he's been around a long time. So he's going to have the polish. He's going to have the experience, and he's kind of been there, done that to a lesser degree. So I just think he's going to test well in terms of being in the room, He's going to throw well because he's big. He's got the big arm. But I'm with you. I think that the talent profile, I didn't like Shuck for the same reason. I don't want the statue that can kind of make throws at the college level. I want to see the athlete. I want to see the processor. I want to see the playmaker. And I just don't know if he has enough of that. We've heard he's got sneaky athleticism. I don't need sneaky athleticism when I'm scouting quarterbacks. I want to see actual athleticism. I want to see it see it. I don't want it to be sneaking up behind me. Oh, talent. No, I want to see it. I don't know if I see it so much.
Sneaky athleticism is what they say about guys like Kirk Cousins, where it's like, oh, he's not a sneaky athlete. He's a guy that can pick you up 6 yards for a first down. I want real athleticism.
Yeah.
I want, like, Russell Wilson's not a sneaky athlete because everyone knows he plays baseball and he can scoot. JJ McCarthy's not a sneaky athlete. JJ McCarthy is athletic and can run, and you saw that on Monday Night Football. Like a guy like Shook and Robertson and Kirk Cousins, that's just not my. And I respected Shuck last year, but I wasn't over my skis. And I think Shuck is a great avenue for you to cross-section what I brought up with McShay here. He loved Shuck, and he loves.
He did love Shuck.
And I do think it's a little heavy-handed.
I love that. The heavies.
That was really. I was looking for a time to bring this into the show last week, and I forgot to do it. It's a local burger joint here in Charleston. Heavy,
dude. You got to get me one of those. You got to get me one of those.
And the burgers, Heavy's Bar Burgers, and they also got some damn good onion rings. Speaking of onions,
ooh, well, before you move on, I do have to say this: we had talked about a little bit of a little weekend scouting trip where I could go down to Columbia so we could see the Gamecocks in person. If I make the trip, I'm going to have to get a hat. And if I don't, you're going to have to send me one of those hats because that just became top of the bucket list here for what I need.
It's got the heavies. She's got the heavies. Maddie's got the heavies. Onions, man. All right. I think that's it. I mean, there's a grip of guys I could talk about, but they're more down the line as far as the next draft class. I think the next few draft classes, they're already peeping their head as far as some of the quarterback play, the Prebulas, the Raiolas of the world. We'll talk about those guys another day. This show didn't unfold how we kind of planned as far as the topic directionally. Never does, but
never does.
We appreciate you all for tapping in, locking in with it. We didn't do picks last week. We did picks in week 1. You had New Mexico State covering against Michigan hit, and I had Florida State covering against Bama. They won outright. And last week we forgot to even talk about it, and we forgot to do our pick. So do you have a pick? Do you have a game this week that you feel bullish on, that you're taking a team to cover, taking a team to win? You got one written down here. I don't want to jump you here with this question, but I forgot to do it last week.
It's okay. That just kept our win streak alive another week. Now we'll have to put our hat back in the ring. I do have a pick. I talked about the quarterback earlier in the show. I'm going to run with the program. I'm taking the Tennessee Volunteers money line.
What?
I don't need the 3.5 points. I want the money line. So depends on what you're going to want to shop this, because on ESPN Bets right now, it has the Volunteers at plus 240. I got in on DraftKings at plus 142. So the money is definitely coming in for Tennessee. I think that Tennessee, neither team has been tested in terms of the talent that they played, but the best opponent either one of them has played is Syracuse, undoubtedly. And Tennessee handled business. I think Aguiar handles business at home. And I don't know. I know that the Georgia Bulldogs defense is going to come to play. I'm so out on their offense right now that I think that when you kind of stack up the lineups, Tennessee has a notch. And when you factor in the fact that they're going to be playing in front of 100,000 Volunteer fans, and you're going to see that orange throughout the stadium, they're playing in Tennessee. I'm going to go with Tennessee Volunteers here. I'm going to take the money line, and I would shop it because you can get some extra juice. But if you're playing on DraftKings plus 142, give me the Tennessee Volunteers to win outright Saturday.
I love that. That's interesting because they haven't won in 8 years. And they've had 3 top 10 matchups and they've lost them each by 13 points or more. But this Georgia offense struggles a little bit. I don't hate it. I mean, if you can get, I'd obviously like the 240 over the one, or the, was it 280 or the 140? 280 over the 142 odds. That's a good bet. I'm going to go South Florida. It's a hot team right now. Obviously, we just talked about them with Byron Brown. Boise State, they win 34-7. Florida, they win 18-16. They were 17.5-point dogs at Florida last week. 17.5-point dogs again this week at Miami. They're not losing by more than 17. They're not. And I think they have a better chance of winning than losing by 17 or more. People have to remember that this Miami stadium and the Miami fans, number one, they're very fair weather. Number two, if it's not a fat game, if it's not a primetime game, sometimes the games in September especially, they get a little hot. And sometimes that makes that stadium a little bit empty. And so a 4:30 kick in Dade County, I'm not sure if that thing's going to be full. And I'm not sure they're going to respect it like they should with the South Florida team. I think a lot of those guys might have sold their tickets to South Florida fans before the season. And this could be an interesting dynamic in the stadium. And I'm going to go Byron Brown and the South Florida Bulls cover 17.5. If you like them to win that game and stay super hot and jump into the top 10 next week, that's plus 570. I'm not quite there, but I'm definitely taking the cover 17.5 for Byron Brown, who's honestly probably going to put himself in the Heisman race if they win that game.
Hey, listen, I got to push back on one thing. You don't think a game on the CW network is going to have hype? You don't think the network that's going to bring Batgirl or whatever network show that they have in this, you don't think the CW is going to bring the hype?
I mean, the CW, I'll be interested to see, like, I don't know what I'm going to be interested to see. That thing's not even going to be on. Maddie, we might not even be able to watch that game. You probably got in Florida with the CW channel to get that game, and I'm not sure anybody in Florida has the CW channel.
Isn't that? I don't know. I honestly don't know, but I just saw on the list here it's a CW game. So go on the big on the CW 4:32, which is also weird. It's usually 12, 3:30, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. The 4:30 is a bit
odd
weird.
Kick. I got one more thing for you, and then I'm going to get out of here. We've talked about the Heisman Trophy a little bit here. Every week I do, my college football power ratings, my SEC power rankings, my Heisman watch list over at Orange Bloods. And this week, I want to get your thoughts on my tier breakdown here for my Heisman watch list. Just tell me if I'm wrong or what you think needs to be adjusted. I like to cross-check with my boy here. So tier 1 for the Heisman watch list this week, Lenora Sellers stays at the top. John Mateer moves up 2 spots to number 2. Garrett Nussmeier drops 1 to number 3. That's my first tier.
Mm-hmm.
Tier 2, Jeremiah Smith stays by himself. In this tier last week was John Mateer. Tier 3, Carson Beck, newly Joey Aguilar, number 6 overall, Dante Moore, number 7 overall. Both jumped up 2 and 4 spots to number 3. Anything in those first 3 tiers you'd move?
I would have Dante Moore above Aguilar, but I think if you're going to tier it, it's fine. I think that this weekend obviously has a lot to play in that. The name I will bring up that isn't on this list at all.
I had 2 more tiers.
And I kind of okay. Let me hear the rest then.
Tier 4. This is a grouping here of these big names. Drew Aller, number 8. Arch Manning, number 9. Thomas Castellanos, number 10. Cade Klubnik, number 11. Devin Dampier, Utah quarterback, number 12. He's a new entrant this week. Tier 5, Dylan Raiola at Nebraska, Jeremiah Love at Notre Dame. Love is just holding on. And then dropped from the list this week, DJ Legway.
Absolutely should have been dropped. You can't lose that game and be in the Heisman race. There is a name that you didn't bring up, and a name that I'm going to bring up. Diego Pavia.
Hey now.
And he should be in tier 4 or 5. I'm not putting him up probably the last tier. I'm not saying he should be up there, but if the Commodores come up, this is such a long shot, but in the one universe in which they can win, or I should say only come out of the season with 2 losses, he's going to be in the conversation because he's going to be in the forefront of it. He's going to have the hype after the documentary. Stats will be there. But you look at the schedule, Cody, at South Carolina on the 13th, at Bama, home against Tech. So this is a 5-game stretch. So they get South Carolina this month. They get a couple-week break. Then they go at Bama, home versus LSU, home versus Mizzou, at Texas, home versus Auburn, versus Kentucky, at Tennessee. If somehow they come out with only 2 losses, he's got to be in the picture. So I know I get not having him in the forefront of your tiers, but if they can survive, if the Commodores come out with 2 losses somehow, he's going to have to be on the list. He's going to have to be on the list.
You're projecting a 10-2 Vanderbilt.
I'm not projecting. I wouldn't bet it. This is a gauntlet. But I mean, listen, can they beat South Carolina? I think they can. After what we saw from South Carolina last week. Can they beat Bama? I think they can.
They did it once.
I think they absolutely can. They did it once. And then let's just say in this schedule, they lose the LSU at home. They lose at Texas. Those are the 2 losses. They could beat
That's
Auburn.
A top 10 team in America.
Vanderbilt, this team, they could beat Kentucky, and now they might be looking at Tennessee, the last game of the year, the rivalry.
Dude, that's a nuts on the table game right there.
That's a nuts on the table type of game, and I'm not saying they're going to be 10-2. But I think I just painted a picture in which this Diego, Pavia team is led to a 10-2 record. And if so, someone else, a Dante Moore, a John Mateer, a Lenore, someone is going to have to steal that trophy for him to not be in the picture, given just the hype that'll be behind him. I know it won't be college hype, but we've seen Heisman Trophy winners that had no, and like the guy who won wasn't really an NFL bona fide guy. Could be Diego Pavia. He should be on there.
You heard it here first. Matty Kiwum at Matty Kiwum on X. Cody Carpentier at Cody Carpentier on X. We appreciate y'all. We love y'all. Click that like button. Click subscribe. Stay locked in every single week for the show. And Matty's right. There have been guys that haven't been good in the NFL that have won the Heisman at the quarterback position. Johnny Manziel, Tim Tebow. And there was this one guy.
Jason White. Anybody?
Sub 6 foot. Doug Flutie.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
See you guys next week.
Peace.